Well, hello there, Epic7. So, I've received several DMs and comments asking me to update the expedition guide. I've tried to put together teams that are capable of 100% full solo clearing without using any limited units, artifacts, or ML5s. I wanted to make this guide more accessible to the average player. Now, even if you don't have the gear to pull off these exact builds, the teams alone should help you score high enough that others will be more likely to finish your expeditions for you, as they'll be mostly cleared already. But before we get into this, I wanted to thank the sponsor of today's video, LDPlayer. Now, I don't want to come off as just another shill promoting a product without testing it. You see, I too ran that other emulator in the past, so I decided to run the new LDPlayer 9 side by side with that emulator on the exact same settings, and was surprised by what I found. LDPlayer now supports a crazy 120 FPS frame rate. It also had less lag, and the graphics were far more crisp. Just look at these two load screens with LDPlayer at the bottom. The depth of color, the sharpness, the quality, it's just simply better. The animations are also smoother, and even the sprites look better. Now, you may be thinking it's not that big of a difference, but you downloaded that high definition media pack, right? Well, why don't you get the full benefit out of it? I have no doubt that this is currently hands down the best Android emulator for PC. Other more popular emulators may have paved the way in the past, but the latest version of LDPlayer is better in performance, quality, and resource usage. So if you want to play Android games like Epic7 with sharper graphics, smoother animation, all while using less CPU and RAM, then use the new LDPlayer 9. Trust me. Actually, no, don't trust me. Try it yourself, then come back and tell me in the comments about your experiences with it. There's a link in the description, and by using this link, you'll both be enhancing your gaming experience as well as helping me and showing your support for my channel. So click that link and give LDPlayer 9 a try. Now let's talk about these expeditions. The first quarter of 2023 brings us Fire, Dark, and Earth expeditions. We'll tackle the Fire expedition first. This is my team. It's by far and away, I think, the easiest, best full clear team. We're going to use Rose, Terranor Guard, Camilla, and Tamarin. Tamarin being the only 5-star unit in this batch. First we'll look at Terranor Guard. Terranor Guard, you just want to build with damage. I put them on a Rage Pen set, but you can also get away with an attack or a destruction set, but Rage will make it much easier for full clear. You want to have at least 85% effectiveness to help him with his defense breaks. His S1 has a 50% chance to defense break, and 85% is the cap to maximize your chance to land debuffs in expeditions. You want a good damage artifact on him. I'm using Victorious Flag as a good damage artifact because no one else is using it, but you could also run Draco Plate. You could run Symbol of Unity, but you probably want that on someone else. Another really good artifact you can run is this 2-star artifact, Ancient Sheath. It's basically the same damage as Symbol of Unity, but it only works on his S1. Merciless Glutton is also a really good option. I mean, really, just whatever you can stick on him to do extra damage, that's what you want. Tamarin will be our healer for this fight. Now, don't worry about her effectiveness or effect resistance. I have them stacked up pretty high, but that's mostly for Nightmare Raid. For the Fire Expedition, you don't really need any effectiveness or effect resistance on Tamarin at all. You do want to run her as fast as possible. I think 230 to 240 is a really good speed range for this expo, but she can be slower. For an artifact, I've got her on Magahara's Tome. That helps her cycle her skills so that she is more likely to have attack buff up more often. You can run her on Idol's Cheer to help with pushing. The P.O.S. artifact is actually pretty good for an extra 20% crit damage and attack to all of your units. If you don't have either of those units, you can really put any healer artifact on her. Ice Rose is one of the cornerstones of this fight. She needs to be faster than the Ferris, so at least 200 speed. The faster the better because it helps cycle her skills. You want to have her on her S3 EE so that it reduces the cooldown on her S3, and I ran her on Prophetic Candlestick to again further reduce it, so she's going to be constantly spamming that S3 EE, which gives her a defense buff and attack buff to the whole team. If your Rose can't take a hit, you can run her on Sword of Vizera or Proof of Valor. They'll help make her beefier. You can also slap her on an effect resistance boosting artifact because Camilla needs ER. We'll get to that in a minute. Another option is a damage artifact like P.O.S. or Water Gun. But as for this effect resistance artifact, the reason that we want to have ER is Camilla. The tech for Camilla is she needs 200% effect resistance. The reason for the 200% effect resistance is that makes her fundamentally immune to being stripped. So when the Ferris does his initial strip, the attack buff given by Rose stays on her and she automatically dual attacks with Terranor Guard, who CR pushes your whole team. It's great synergy. Now you may be thinking, 200 effect resistance, how can I pull that off? Well, it's easy because Camilla's a warrior. So you can run Strat Gauntlet on her. That's 60% effect resistance. You can put Shamadra's Staff or some other ER boosting artifact on Tamarin for another 20%. That's 80% ER. And you can run the Bastion of Hope on Ice Rose, and that will get you another 50% ER. And you only have to come up with a pittance to get to the 200% total. Other than that, just make sure she's beefy enough to survive. I gave her a little bit of a high crit chance rate just to add to damage, but that's totally not necessary. Now, you do want to have Camilla's skills off. You only want her to S1. She'll constantly have attack buffs, so her S2 and S3 aren't necessary. At the start of the fight, Rose does her S3, and that puts the attack buff on Camilla, so she's already dual attacking. Now watch this. The Ferris does his thing, and Camilla can't be stripped because of the effect resistance. That means when she attacks, Terranor Guard counters, pushes up your whole team, and you get a guaranteed clear of that first phase. Rose puts a defense buff on herself, and now the Ferris has no way of hurting her, even though her defense is kind of low. Tamarin heals everybody up, and now the team is 100% stabilized. Tamarin pushes everybody up. More attack buffs for Camilla, so she is maintaining her attack buff pretty much the entire fight. And that's why you can run her with her skills off. It's fast, it's clean, it's satisfying. There is a very tiny chance that you might walk into the second Ferris jump debuff phase in a very small window where Camilla doesn't have attack buff up. It happens maybe one out of every 40 or 50 runs, but with the exception of that, this team has never failed me. It's always full cleared.
Radiant Spirit, Destina. Charge!
And there's the S3 from Terranor Guard. You saw that did pretty significant damage, mostly because I have his S3 skill max stigma'd. If you didn't put any stigma into Terranor Guard's S3, then just go ahead and turn his skills off too, so that he only uses his S1.
Battlefield's protector. Together!
Move out!
This is a very satisfying team to watch.
Smite them.
Drive them out! Move out!
Ladies and gentlemen.
Now with this push, an attack buff is re-established on Camilla, and Terranor Guard takes us over 900k. The Ferris only has 1.8 million health, so if you pass 900k before he does his ultimate again, you know you've got a full clear on your hands. We're at 1 million, a full 100k ahead of target. Now because Camilla has the attack buff, she dual attacks, which pushes the entire team up and guarantees the clearing of the silence phase. Rose gets her S3 up, Tam's S3 is right behind it, and again the team is stabilized, and it continues like this until the end of the fight.
Move out! To your positions!
Here!
I think you'll really enjoy this team. There are other teams that do really well, ones that rely on limited units, ones that rely on the units not shown here. If you need a different team, if you don't, for some reason, don't have these units, hit me up in the description. But I'm telling you, other than Rose, everybody on this team can be level 50. The first time I did this, I did a full clear with this. I did it with a level 50 Terranor Guard, level 50 Camilla, and well, okay, my Tam was level 60, but she didn't need to be. She's probably the tankiest of anybody here. Rose was my only level 60 unit because I needed her to be able to take a hit, but honestly I probably could have put Proof or Sword of Azera on her and taken care of that. And here we are at 1.6 million.
Battlefield's protector.
And we're not even close to the Ferris doing his extinction hit. In fact, I think we still got at least 2 cycles left.
Radiant Spirit, Destina. Go away.
Now.
And there you go. A nice, clean, full clear team. It's nice to be able to run these, especially during a hunt buff, because people tend to ignore expeditions during hunt buff, so it's nice to clear your own while you're background battling. Now let's talk about the green expedition, the Earth expedition, the Blooming Snaglich. So it's kind of the loser squad here. These are units that nobody really uses anywhere else, well, except for Mercedes. She's come into her own lately. For our front runner and knight, we're going to run Cecilia. She is by far and away the best expedition knight, bar none. Cecilia is loaded with buffs and debuffs that make her incredible for this, so you want her to be fast enough to get those buffs off and have the 85% effectiveness to get the debuffs off. I know, I'm at 84%, but close enough. For an artifact, I ran her on Sword of Azera because mine's not super tanky. You could also run her on Midnight Bloom, which would greatly reduce your gearing requirement for everybody on the team. You could also run a damage artifact or really just about anything on her that helps you achieve your goals. You definitely want her on her S2 EE. The slow debuff is huge for racking up a high score in this fight. Now if you don't have Cecilia, you can run Adventurer Ras. He works okay, not quite as well, but he does work. And also Fire Lilius is a third good option. I think Fire Lilius might be slightly better than Ras in this because of her cleanse. But both of these options are by far not as good as Cecilia. If you can get Cecilia on this team, she will take it to the next level. Now we're going to run Bomb Model Kana as our healer. She does have a strip on her S3, so the effectiveness is nice, though not as critical. With Bloodstone, she is our healer. You want to have her on her S2 EE. This EE increases her dual attack chance and speed by 5%. So raw stats and extra chance to dual attacks just make her that much better of a unit. You do want to have her crit chance maxed out to 85%. I know I'm only 83, but close enough. And the reason is because the Bloodstone heals based off damage done, so you want her to do some damage. Now if you don't have Bloodstone, don't use Kana, use Mascot Hazel. She is the best healer for this fight, and she will also allow for a full clear, I'd say 90% of the time. Substantially better healer for this than Tamarin. Tamarin has almost no use at all in this fight. Our main DPS is going to be Mercedes. The nice thing about Mercedes is that all of her attacks hit multi-target, and she hits a lot. She put her on Magic for Friends, and that can proc, and she could take 3 or 4 turns in one round. And when you're trying to get that neurotoxin antidote on you, you want to be able to spam multi-target attacks. Speaking of multi-target attacks, we're going to use Fireball and Cezanne. He is our defense breaker, so we want him at 85% effectiveness again. Fell just short. He does great damage. Mine is a little short on crit chance. I need to mod a couple of pieces to get that up to 100% or 85%. I think Edika's Scepter is probably the best artifact for him because it'll help cycle his S3, and that's where his dual attack and damage is. He doesn't need to be super fast, but you want him to take turns as well. If you do not have Fireball or just refuse to run him, you can run as an alternate Fire Tenebria. She has also got defense breaks in her kit. 2 of her 3 skills are AoE skills, so if you put her on Prophetic Candlestick or on Etika Scepter, you should be able to cycle her skill cooldowns enough that she will spam enough AoEs. I don't think she's as good as Fireball, but she will still work in the role.
You'll be destroyed.
So since Cecilia is faster than the Lich, she will go first and put immunity on everybody. This means that when the Lich takes his first turn, you don't have to deal with poisons. That's one of the things that is nicer about Cecilia than the other knights. If you're going to run Lilius, you want to make sure Lilius goes after the Lich so she can cleanse the poisons. Fireball does his S3, establishes some debuffs. Kana does her S3 and gives everybody a speed buff. And I'm immune to the poisons, so we can use the S2 on Cecilia to establish the slow debuff and strip the attack buff. And now we're spamming AoE hits so often that we will get the neurotoxin buff relatively quickly. Cecilia's S1 also has a 50% chance to defense break in it. Between that and Ball doing his S3s, you should maintain pretty good uptime on your defense breaks. And there we get the neurotoxin buff. And the team is stabilized. With the immunity spamming from Cecilia, which is why you want to run Cecilia relatively fast, with her immunity spamming, you won't get poisons stacked up on you. And with her S2 having a attack break and a strip on it to pull the attack buff off of the Lich, he never really hits you that hard. In fact, look how little damage my team has been taking. And all of this with just a level 18 Bloodstone on, of all units, Bomb Model Kana.
My lady.
I will break through.
And there's the strip. Oh, I didn't get the strip, but I did get the slow debuff. But even without the strip, between barriers and Bloodstone healing, it's enough to keep me going. Here's the ultimate attack, and we're at 890. We're actually a little bit behind schedule. That was the second ultimate, so we're at the halfway point of the fight, and we just crossed the halfway point on damage. So a lot of this is RNG with getting counterattacks from Mercedes and getting defense breaks constantly on the boss. But I tell you, I would say this clears about 90 to 95% of the time. It's very rare that I leave the Lich with any health left, and those rare occasions where he does survive my attack, he usually only has 70 to 90k left to kill him, and pretty much anybody will come along and finish that kind of a fight off. They see just a sliver of health left on it, they'll jump in and finish it off for you.
Obey me.
Okay, we're making pretty good gain now with Mercedes proccing a little more often, up to 1.2 million. That was a 4,600 hit point heal from Bomb Model Kana there, by the way.
My lady.
Bombs away! Oops, did I forget to ask first? Obey me. Nana's on her way.
There's that dual attack chance that you get off of Bomb Model Kana that the S2EE helps. 1.5 million, I think we're fine. The boss is still a couple rounds away. We definitely made up for lost time in the second half of this fight.
Obey me. Obey me.
There's 1.7. And one more hit should do it. Okay, not one more hit.
I will break through.
There we go. 1.8 million with still an entire round and a half left on the turn cycle. So this is a very clean and efficient team. I think you'll really like it, and it'll help you get those golem mats that everybody really wants, right?
Not many can be trusted with a task like this. Lucky we've got you.
He's talking about you, you know, because Dark Expedition is one of the harder ones to full clear. So these guys are going to be lucky that you're hitting their expeditions, because this is a really clean full clear team. Now it has a higher gear requirement than many of the other teams, but even if you don't make this gear requirement, it's still a very high scoring team. We're going to run the same Cecilia from the Earth Expedition. Again, 85% effectiveness is the goal to maximize debuffs and strips. Her S2EE because slow is really important. And I'm running her on Sword of Azera because my Cecilia is not very thick. Now, you can also run her on Proof of Valor if you don't have Sword of Azera. If you build yours a lot thicker than mine, you can run her on a damage artifact like P.O.S. You can also put her on Bastion of Hope to give Tamarin some effect resistance to help her deal with not getting her skills rolled back. Our damage dealer for this team is going to be Commander Lorena. Commander Lorena is best in slot for this. I have her on a Rage Pen set. You can try it with Destruction or Attack, but I really think you're going to want Rage Pen if you want to get the full clear. Otherwise, you'll still proc a very good score, but it won't be as deep. I'm running her on Ancient Sheath, which will make her S1 hit harder. You can also run her on Symbol of Unity, but it's the same attack bonus, or same damage bonus, I should say. Merciless Glutton is also a good option. The absolute best in slot piece for her would be Jacko's Symbol. That's what I normally run, but it's a limited artifact, so I'm not going to feature it in this fight. So we'll leave Ancient Sheath on her. No other stats required, just focus on damage. Fire Shuri is going to be my CR pusher. Lorena doesn't need the speed imprint, but Tamarin does, so make sure he's positioned to give Tamarin the 14 speed imprint. For an artifact, I'm running Sword of Judgment. It gives a secondary chance for his S1 to proc, which is more CR pushes. Best in slot, I think, would be Miss Confile to constantly spam defense breaks, but again, limited artifacts, so we're skipping that. Song of Stars would be the second best option. It really stacks up the damage, and I think it's probably the best option. Rosa Hargana is kind of a alternate version of Sword of Judgment. And lastly, you can always stick them on Midnight Bloom to reduce the stat requirements and make these higher build requirements a little easier to hit. I also like him to have a little bit of damage, but it's not really needed. For a healer, we're running the same Tamarin that we ran in the Fire Expedition. Again, her stats are a little high. You need 100% effect resistance and 85% effectiveness. The 100% effect resistance means you're immune to the cannon's skill cooldowns, so Tam will always have her turn cycling ready. I put her on Magahara's Tome to cycle her skills. I think it's important for this fight. It's a little hard to replace, but you could run Idol's Cheer to push Camilla around. You could run P.O.S. or some other damage artifact, or God forbid you can't get 100 ER on your own. You can run Bastion of Hope or some other ER boosting artifact like Unfading Memories. Make sure Tamarin is fast enough to cycle her skills too. You want her at least in the 220 range, I think. Faster the better on all of these units, with the exception of Camilla, who doesn't really need speed at all. Another nice thing about this team is, unlike many other Dark Expedition teams, you don't have to manual the first part of it and wait for the boss to take his turn and then turn auto on. You just mash auto right from the get-go. There's no need to wait. Now everybody's taking some electrocution damage, but Tamarin is a strong enough healer to stay ahead of it as long as you have a little bit of bulk on all of your units. Because nobody has a way to cleanse electrocution off, with the exception of Tam. So every single round you'll take electrocution damage. Nice dual attack there. And you notice our health gets a little bit low, especially on the turn where Tamarin does her S1. We got our S2 off, and that tops everybody back off. And Tamarin gets to transform, and her S2 heals everybody up. This is why it's important to have the 100% effect resistance on Tamarin, because that cannon will constantly roll skills back, and if she doesn't have the 100% resistance, she won't be able to transform, which is important for healing and maintaining your turn cycling. Now, much like Fire Expedition, this is a similar CR push team. Every time Shuri takes an attack, either his S3 or his S1, it pushes your units up. And his S3 can push the cannon back. Now, unfortunately, you can't push the Gigantus back, or else you could cheese the fight. But this S3 is able to push the cannon back, though I think I get resisted here. Yeah, I got resisted. But it still pushed the entire team up. The only thing we're missing is a source of speed buff. But because of the CR pushing out of Shuri, that makes up for not having a speed buffer. Now, alternate units. There really is no alternate unit for Tamarin. You can run Falcon or Clury as your knight, or Fire Lilius as your knight, but to get maximum efficiency out of the fight, you'll have to manual the fight until the Gigantus takes his first turn, then you can turn it on auto. That's why I really like Cecilia for this. There's no manual portion to the fight. It's full auto, not semi-auto. You can replace Shuri with Cerise, and you get the speed buff, which makes up for the CR pushing a little bit, but it's nowhere near as efficient. As for the DPS unit, if you don't want to run Camilla, you can run Luna, especially if she's on her S1 EE that gives 15% CR pushing when she attacks. Or you could run Landy. Her damage scaling and AoE speed buff can help push things along a bit. You won't score nearly as high as Commander Lorena scores running those units, but they both can work in this fight. As for Tamarin, there really is no replacement. If you don't have a Tam, do the side story, summons, and get one. She's too important to so many different aspects of PvE. Now that defense buff's a problem, but we've got a strip on Cecilia's S2, and we got it. But if we didn't get the strip there, Tamarin's S1, while she's in idle form, is also a strip, and that's why you want to have 85% effectiveness on Tamarin as well, so you aren't just relying on Cecilia to strip that defense buff. Getting rid of that defense buff is kind of key to pushing phase. Now we've got a little bit of a problem. We just now have crossed the 900k health mark, and we are really behind on turns. The boss is only about 3 turns away from extincting us, so we really need to make up for lost time here. A lot of this fight depends on Shuri proccing his S1 twice with Sword of Judgment, or sticking the target debuff if you run Song of Stars, and a lot of it relies on getting rid of that defense buff and getting a defense break onto the Gigantus. The S3 into that defense break will certainly help. We're up to 1.1 million.
Listen to my song. Shine free. Grant me the strength to destroy evil.
We'll refresh the slow debuff and the attack down.
Together.
We strip that defense buff off with Tamarin's S1. 1.3 million.
1, 2. This is the end.
1.4. Refresh the defense break. CR pushed everybody up. We're making pretty good time now. This is a lot better than the first half of the fight. I think we might be fine. Okay, this is the last phase. We've got one round to do about 270k damage. That's going to be tight. 1.6. Tamarin, your transform timing is perfect.
Know my song. Shine free.
Lance of Steel.
Can we stick a slow debuff? Nice, we got the slow. That'll help us with some time.
Let's fight
1.7.
Break you into 1,000 pieces.
Big push up from Shuri.
Fall asunder.
All enemies will fall to my spear.
And Lorena brings it home for a whopping 100k damage off her S3, and that gets us our 1.8 million. So as you can see, this team isn't 100% full clear. I'd say I get probably 75% full clear, but when it doesn't full clear, it's 1.6 to 1.7 million. It's enough damage that you will get the expedition done. Somebody will come across and clear it for you. And that wraps up my expedition video for the first quarter of 2023. I hope these teams help you with your clears and make expeditions easier and cleaner for you. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments section. Thanks again to LDPlayer for sponsoring this video, and thanks to all of you who've supported me over this time. Continue showing that support by liking and subscribing, and by especially trying out LDPlayer. Use the link in the description. If you don't use the link, I don't get credit for it, so do a wolf a favor and click that link, download LDPlayer, and give it a try. I think you'll be pleased. Until next time, have a great rest of your week.